With the new Genji nerf slated to go live on the 15th, I broke down the math and tested the changes so I can tell you definitively how much these actually matter and is Genji still going to be worthwhile post nerfs. We're going to break it all down, but only 5% of you are actually subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy the content, consider pressing that subscribe button and let's get into it. Now we have a number of different nerfs slated, but none of them is more controversial than the Genji damage nerfs. Genji's shuriken damage is going down from 29 per to 27 per, and a lot of Genji players are really upset. Genji really got the short end of the stick in Overwatch 1, especially after Brig was introduced in Season 9 and added to competitive in Season 10. Now Genji also got a max ammo reduction from 30 to 24, but people are primarily focusing on that shuriken damage. And for those of you who don't really think that that would actually matter, Genji players are concerned because when you slightly change the damage on this character, it can easily change big breakpoints in the game. Genji could one-tap characters that he wouldn't be able to before, he can actually incorporate combos or lose combos, and it leaves a lot of things kind of up in the air with the character. When you mess with this damage, you could change so much about him fundamentally. That being said, not only did I test the character, but I broke down the math, and let's actually dig into what I found. Now let's talk about the criticals. So for before, we would have 58 damage with a critical. So you got a headshot, you would do that fat 58 damage. And if you got 2 headshots, you would do 116. But now you do 54 damage with that headshot and you do only 108. That's an 8 damage difference, of course. But does that 8 damage actually matter, especially when stacked up or trying to kill an enemy? Well, let's break it down a little bit further. So if you wanted to hit either 4 headshots or 8 body shots, where it's pretty realistic to get in 8 body shots, because if you're close to a target, you right click or alternate fire 4 times, hitting 2 on the body each time, that's gonna be 8. Or of course, if you somehow, just hit only headshots 4 times, you're gonna do the same thing. So in this replicated scenario, for pre-nerf, it's gonna do 58 times 4, which would be 232 damage, and post-nerf, it would be 54 times 4, which is only 216. Now that doesn't seem like a huge change, but this is probably the most interesting breakpoint, because specifically, characters that are 225 HP might be a little bit more difficult for Genji to duel, especially if he's fighting them without his dash. Like he's dashing towards them and then just trying to fight them naturally. Although it doesn't really quite work out that way, because you will, 1, typically get your dash cooldown back, and 2, you could always finish them off with the 30 damage melee. So in that scenario, it doesn't really change breakpoints all that much. However, let's remove 2 body shots from both equations. So in that scenario where you actually did 6 body shots or 3 headshots for either of these 2 scenarios, then the one before the nerf will do 174 damage, which means a melee will break that threshold to actually finish off a 200 HP hero. But post nerf, it's only going to do 168 plus that 30, which is going to be 2 damage shy of actually comboing an enemy. So there's a small window of time where they could get saved. So if the enemy is actually at true full and they're 200 HP, you need to keep in mind that the damage breakpoints are going to be slightly different, and it could come up, but I will talk about why ultimately it doesn't matter, but we'll get to that in a bit. Now, if we actually look at them just getting 2 headshots, like if you get really close to a target, right click or alternate fire, get 2 headshots and dash, what is that? So the 2 headshots are going to do 116 pre-patch and 108 post-patch, and then the 50 added on top of that would be 166 and 158. In both of these situations, a melee doesn't mean that you could one-tap a 200 HP hero, and in both these situations, a dash always kills a 150 HP hero afterwards. So it doesn't meaningfully change anything really in that department as far as combos are concerned. If you actually are setting up for like a tracer, double headshot dash to insta-killer, that's still gonna work all the same, and it's not gonna change any major breakpoints as far as that is concerned, either up or down. Now, keep in mind before we move on, some of this background footage is going to be me testing Genji when he has a reduced damage amount so that it actually reflects how much his shurikens are going to do. But keep in mind, I can't actually separate things specifically. So the Genji here also has reduced damage with his blade and his dash, so it's a little bit of a wash. I will tell you though, while this is just an isolated example and it's not going to be completely replicative of like an actual game, it doesn't really feel all that different. Genji's still very good at dueling. He's still very good at killing. He's still great in a 1v1. He's still great at bursting damage. But before we get into that, let's actually talk about what happens with 3 headshots. So if you get 3 headshots, so first off, let's take pre-nerf 58 times 3, which is 174, plus 50 is 224, and then post, it's actually 54 times 3, which is 162, plus that 50 dash is 212. So in both situations, you get 3 headshots on an enemy, plus your dash, you're still not killing a 225 HP character, such as Cassidy, for instance. Now, we learned in this that one of the combos is slightly changed, but for the most part, things are kind of the same. Genji still has the exact same strengths he had before, and it actually is important to understand that for the most part, these changes won't be insanely felt. You're not going to all of a sudden be whiffing on kills or not getting kills that you did get before, and most of the time, good Genjis are waiting for good opportunities to go in and do a lot of damage to a target, not necessarily trying to set up this super hyper optimal combo that will instantly one-tap someone in a certain range and then get away. Ultimately, these changes just affect Genji's overall damage output more than his burst capability. Because of the change to his ammo and, of course, the slight reduction to his damage, he's going to be building blades less when he's spamming. There's going to be slightly less margin for error, but honestly, you're going to get used to that very quickly. And I think that while it is scary that Genji gets nerfs, and I know that a lot of Genji players are a little bit upset about it. I main Genji myself. I play Genji a ton myself. I understand. There's a couple of things you need to consider here. None of what makes Genji good in Overwatch 2 has changed. Genji doesn't have to play around a crazy amount of CC. He still gets to punish enemies for their mistakes. He still has one of the most impactful ultimates, and he still has the capability to 1v1 just about any squishy in the entire game. All of these strengths are still here, and they're not changing because of this nerf. It doesn't actually fundamentally change him. I think Genji mains would collectively take this even more damage nerfs over like a character like Brig being introduced back to the game, and I know that for a fact. In addition to that, you gotta understand that characters that actually were good against Genji and annoying to deal with are getting nerfed. Sombra was very, very annoying to deal with as a Genji. Getting hacked when you're trying to prep your blade. Getting hacked out of your reflect. Just being a general annoying character that you can't really do that much about. She's getting hit in this patch. Zarya is a very annoying character for Genji to deal with. Most of the time, Genji has to completely ignore Zarya because she just basically vaporizes you and your reflect does nothing, but her getting weaker is gonna just help Genji through the fact that she's gonna be slightly less strong. And we definitely can't forget about Kiriko, that actual change to when she teleports in and she can actually take damage, especially with Kiriko seeing a lot more play and becoming one of the best supports right now. At least that's what we're seeing in the Overwatch League and in ranked play as well. Genji is a character that will have to deal with that more than most, because when he's on a target that wants to get bailed out by Kiriko, she's flying in. So all of these changes, all of these nerfs that are happening to other characters that hurt Genji, in my opinion, actually make Genji better, and at the cost of these damage nerfs that don't greatly affect anything about what Genji is strong at in Overwatch 2. I think the panic that Genji is dead now is completely overblown, and Genji's gonna be just fine. I think he's still gonna be one of the best characters in Overwatch 2. And if you still got a problem, sounds like a skill issue. All joking aside, please smash that subscribe and let me know how you feel about these changes now that the numbers are broken down for you in the comments down below. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.